Magnus Carlsen, the best chess player in the world, has won yesterday a new prestigious chess event in 2023. Yesterday, he beat Hikaru Nakamura in the Airthings Masters 2023 Super Final with a clear result. We have to say it because he won his first game, and then in the next 3 games, he managed to get a draw, which was a clear result, I think, because also in the 3 drawish games, Magnus was slightly better. I think Hikaru never got a chance to make something in the Super Final. So now, as I said, Magnus Carlsen is the deserved winner of the Airthings Masters 2023. So although this game has been covered now many times, the game 1, the decisive game, I still wanted to cover it because if you have followed my YouTube chess channel, then you know that I've started this Queen's Gambit decline studies. So the Queen's Gambit decline for white and from black's perspective, where we have covered many openings like the Tarrasch defense, semi-Tarrasch defense, Arago's defense, and many more. Among them also the so-called Vienna Variation, and the decisive game was actually a beautiful Vienna Variation of the Queen's Gambit decline played by Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura. So although it was a brilliant game, it was an important game for this chess event, I still think this was a beautiful game that has a beautiful theoretical value for all of us, because this game you have to, I think, use as a better understanding of the Queen's Gambit decline, but also of this beautiful Vienna Variation. So as I said, if you're bothered by the Vienna Variation, or if you want to play the Vienna Variation from black's perspective, in my opinion, this is a beautiful, really instructive game that you can use at home. So let's see now the game. Magnus Carlsen with the white pieces opened with the move c4. Hikaru's response was knight to f6. After knight to f3, e6, knight to c3, d5, and d4. The game transposed into the 3 knights variation of the Queen's Gambit decline. So now Hikaru goes with the move d takes c4, which is now the Vienna Variation, and it's a tricky line because basically if you play e3, the problem is now this is simply too passive. a6 is going to happen after something like bishop to c4, b5 you hit the bishop, and then with c5 bishop to b7, knight to d7. This could be, I think, a very unpleasant line for white to handle. So that's why white many times uses this idea, is going with the aggressive move e4, because you deflected the pawn now from the center, and of course white has now a dominant position in the center of the board. But this aggressive method e4 many times is met by 2 ideas: by the move bishop to b4 or by the move b5. Bishop to b4 is also a very beautiful line. Many times it leads into a gambit line where basically after bishop to c4, white is giving up the pawn on e4, castles, and then after something like knight to c3, bishop b takes c3, bishop to e7, knight gets on e5, queen gets on g4, and in this particular line white is down a pawn but has a better piece activity and is going into a sharp tactical battle here against black. So this is one of course opportunity here for black. But Hikaru went into maybe not so often played line with the move b5, but it's, I think, also playable line for both sides. So nothing wrong also here with Hikaru's choice. I liked also many times this idea b5, because it forces now a reaction by white again, which is very important. Now Magnus goes into this move e5, but notice when you play now the move e5, okay, you get the tempo against the knight, but you have left now yourself here a structural weakness, which is now this backward pawn, and basically with this line b5, black is provoking this weakness in white's camp. So okay, you will eventually take out now the pawn on b5. Black goes now to the square b6, and is protecting now the pawn on c4, and you see now, okay, we can say that the c4 pawn is weak. We can say that maybe also black has a double pawn structure on the c file. These are of course weaknesses, but we have to also notice that white has also weaknesses, especially the backward pawn on d4 is causing now headache, I think, here for white. And also many times the square d5 for black is used to keep the position in the center compact. So many times maybe black is trying to reroute somehow maybe his pieces, bishop to b7, but the main goal is to keep a great control of the d5 square, because when you face a backward pawn like black is facing here, so let's flip the board, so the best idea is to keep everything glued together in front of this square d5. So you have to play really a compact position around the square d5. So in my opinion, as I said, it's a double-edged opening line, playable for white and for black, and there are many theoretical ideas here for both sides. So many times I had a discussion, oh man, this is bad for black, but actually this is really a wild position, especially because also some cool tactical ideas that black has also in the continuation of the game. So here Magnus goes with the move a3. So the problem about this move a3 is a little bit that you're weakening here the pawn structure on b3, maybe also on a4, but this move a3 prevents many times this annoying check move by the move bishop to b4, so it's also a playable line. Main lines what can also happen are bishop to e3 or bishop to e2 is also a playable line. But notice also one strategic concept here for black. Black will many times, don't get surprised by this idea, black will also many times castle towards the queen side. Don't be surprised, because if you get too early, if you play bishop to e2, maybe king side castling, black is going to maybe play bishop to b7, knight to c6, queen to d7, queen side castling, and after your king side castling, he could launch maybe here flank attack with h6 g5. So don't get surprised by queen side castling ideas here by black. I've seen it many times, and I think Nepomniachtchi won the game against Magnus Carlsen with the black pieces with this kind of an idea. So as I said, one of the main strategic concepts for black is actually here to play queenside castling. So knight to c6 first by Hikaru, bishop to e3, queen to d7, and you see now knight to c3, Magnus retreats, and bishop to b7, already maybe a preparation to play even queenside castling. So as I said, if you just go too early, maybe with bishop to e2, bishop to e2, queenside castling, kingside castling, look at this, h6 g5, rook to g8, bishop is targeting the square g2, the long diagonal is liberated, we have a great control of the d5 square, so you're not to advance your pawn to d5. So as I said, this could be really also very tough to handle here for white. So as I said, it's one of the main ideas here for black. So in the continuation, Magnus goes queen to c2, which is a cool choice here by Magnus. He delays castling. He's not showing his cards here. That's, I think, many times a tricky battle already between two sides. So basically no one wants to castle first, because when you castle first, then you already showed your cards where your opponent could attack you. So that's why Magnus delays the situation. He plays queen to c2. That's why this move a3 is very also important, because you're not allowing knight to b4. And you see now the main goal is to get the rook behind the pawn on d4, because we have to protect our backward pawn. So we're trying to get now again sort of a delaying move. We don't want to castle, we don't want to castle kingside, we don't want to castle queenside. Our king is secured so far on e1, so because the center is not going to get open. So it's really a tough battle already, and I think Hikaru deviates maybe a little bit from the best line. He plays now a tricky move, knight to a5. He's trying maybe to get his knight on b3, but actually look at this, after rook to d1 that Magnus Carlsen played, knight to b3 is not working, because you're leaving your c4 pawn unprotected. Look at this now, d5 is here a brilliant choice. If you play now e takes d5, the problem is now bishop to b6 is going to happen, c takes b6, and now bishop to c4. There is simply this beautiful tension on the d file. The same thing happens, for instance, after knight to d5, again we play bishop to c4. Look at this, there's simply too much pressure on this diagonal, so the knight on b3 is hanging. So this is really already a messed up game for black. So you see, after move rook to d1, this whole idea of knight to b3 is not working. Maybe a better idea after instead of this move knight to a5 for Hikaru would have been knight to e7. It's a strange idea that you play maybe with the same piece twice in the opening, but I love simply more this control around the square d5. Maybe also with some opportunities to get your knight on f5. Maybe then h6 g5. But I think that black should also keep a little bit longer, maybe the king in the center, and then reroute the knight on a better square. Okay. Hikaru played on the same idea with knight to a5. He's keeping his position compact around the square c4, but Magnus is saying, okay, as I said, rook to d1, you can get even later your square on b3, but it doesn't matter. d5 is now the huge tactical goal. So in the continuation, rook to b8 played by Hikaru, bishop to e2. Still, no one is castling in this particular game. Bishop to e7. Here we have h4 by Magnus Carlsen, and this is actually the way to go, because when we watch now the pawn structure here, d4 e5, it's showing us that we should actually attack the king side. Black has an advantage, of course, on the queen side, because many pieces are there. A bishop is already here. Also, this bishop can be used in an attack on the queen side, but now we have to play aggressively here on the king side. h4 is a brilliant move here by Magnus. He wants also to play maybe rook to h3, rook to g3, maybe hitting also the pawn on g7, because although it's sort of a semi-open game, but still the structure is blocked out. It's not so easy to open the center, so the center is not going to get open. At least the kings are not going to get endangered on the in the center of the board. So far, as I said, a brilliant choice here by Magnus Carlsen, h4. So in the continuation, bishop to c6, we have now h5, and now comes maybe even the critical moment here by Hikaru Nakamura. He plays bishop to a4, and there are many games in the database in which black played this move bishop to a4, but in my opinion this is not a good choice. You're giving up your most powerful piece, I think, on the board. Your bishop is slicing on this diagonal. Even if you somehow open the g file, I think there could be always some tactics around the square g2, and now you're giving up simply your best piece. I don't like simply this move by Hikaru Nakamura, although it has been played many times in chess history. Maybe kingside castling slightly better than after something like h6, which pass through with the move g6, and basically white needs now to make a reaction. Okay, white has maybe these ideas: rook to h3, rook to g3, maybe, I don't know, knight to g5, knight to e4, knight to f6. These are also opportunities, but giving up your light square bishop, I think, is a suicide here by Hikaru Nakamura. After move h5, he played bishop to a4. Magnus accepts the challenge here. After queen to a4, Magnus is saying, okay, we can trade off the queens, but you have now huge problem. You have now the problem on c4, and it becomes now actually a problem because you gave up your light square bishop. Now the light square bishop is slicing up here on c4, so it's not so easy now anymore to protect the pawn on c4. Even if you play something like queen takes c2, now we can maybe castle, but look at this, we can play h6, g6, and now after kingside castling, maybe you play something like c6, but look at this, with bishop to d2, after a couple of moves, I think you could lose your pawn on c4, the knight is hanging, then eventually the pawn on c4 is hanging, then eventually the c6 pawn is weak, so suddenly I think the whole position is falling apart here for black. So as I said, all of that because of this, I don't know, I have to say it's a bad move here by Hikaru, bishop to a4. So in the continuation, as we said, knight to a4, queen to a4, rook to c1. Magnus knows where to attack the position. Knight to b3. Okay, it gives here Hikaru time to maybe to regroup and finally protect the pawn on c4. But Magnus, after queen to a5 by Hikaru, plays a calm move, king to f1. Really wild stuff. So now he really decided that he's not going to castle in this position, but as I said, the center was never to be opened anyway in the continuation of the games because the blocked out pawn structure in the center here, so the e file could never get open. So even the king on f1 is now secured because still Magnus can rely on his attack on the h file. He still cannot play this idea rook to h3, rook to g3. So as I said, even if you play some tactics, but I think even if the game simplifies enough, still you have some worries. What are you going to do with your c4 pawn? So in the continuation, c5 by Hikaru, and this is now the huge mistake. This is now even game over almost, because queen to b5 would have been maybe slightly better. Regrouping again, maybe trying again to play sort of a blockade around the square d5, maybe even castle kingside, invite your opponent's attack, but as I said, at least securing the king somehow. After move c5, Magnus accepts now the challenge. He plays now h6, g6, he plays d takes c5, but look at this, after bishop to c5, queen to c5, this becomes now a huge tactical problem. There's nothing that can be done actually against this attack on c4, because even if you play something like, I don't know, rook to c8, we can play king to g1, and then eventually we can always play something like bishop to c4. After knight to c4, we can also pick up then the knight on b3, because we would undermine the defender of the knight on b3. So it's always a nice tactical shot for white. So from this point on, I think the game is a one-way ticket here, is simply in white's favor. So after rook to h4, Hikaru castled. We have bishop to c4. Look at this, rook to c8, but now Magnus grabs the knight on b3. We have here a couple of checks, but now after rook to b4, Magnus kicks away the queen from the attack. We have queen to a2, rook to d1. Look how Magnus is playing now with his rooks on his beautiful files. We have now the move a5, rook to b5, a4 here. Hikaru Nakamura is trying to paralyze these two pawns with only one pawn, keeping somehow the position blocked out on the queen side. But as I said, he lost some pawns. He is vulnerable here on dark squares. Even if the queen maybe sneaks in somehow here on f6, this could be dangerous. You can also get checkmated, so it's very, very bad game here for Hikaru. Queen to e4, we have queen to c4. This forces, of course, trades of queens. Queen to c4, knight to c4, rook takes b8, rook takes b8. And the problem is always for Hikaru that he cannot leave the protection of the bank rank. Even if he does it, of course, then he gets checkmated. So it's also something that bothers black in the continuation of the game. So rook to c8, rook to d7, knight takes b2, knight to g5. Now this one is weak, so too many weaknesses in black's camp. Now the rook is coming into the game. Here Magnus attacks the pawn in a different way. We have here rook to c1. After a couple of checks here by Hikaru, nothing spectacular. No perpetuals are of course possible. After rook to b4, the knight has to step back. Here Magnus goes with this line, king to e2, rook to c8. Even if you play, of course, here something like this, then you get checkmated. As I said, this is something that bothers always black in the continuation of the game. So that's why first rook to c8. Now Magnus grabs the pawn. We have now knight takes e5, but now again this one is weak. Knight to g4 here by Hikaru Nakamura, but now knight takes f7, and this pawn on h6 is protected. So simply bad game here for black. So rook to b8, f3, kicking away the knight. We have here king to d3. The knight has to step back, and here after king to d4, rook to d2 again. Only a couple of checks here by Hikaru after rook to a2, knight to g5, and knight to d1. In this position, actually, Hikaru Nakamura resigned because there's simply no defense against rook to f3. You can play, I don't know, just some ideas. The king is coming into the game. Rook to a8. Look at this. It's also checkmate. You have to play maybe even here e5, but again, the king is coming closer, so it's a position that I think is fair to resign. So incredible game here by Magnus Carlsen. I think. Great theory in the Vienna variation of the Queen's Gambit decline. After move e4, here he played this a3 idea, very nice move. Then after bishop to e3, knight to c3, queen to c2, delaying castling. This is brilliant, I think, because if you castle too early, then maybe black castles on the queen side and will launch a flank attack with hx g5. I've seen it many times. I got also destroyed many times with the white pieces against the Vienna variation. When I castled too early, I won also some games, but as I said, it's really an unpleasant idea. Here Magnus played really brilliant chess. Queen to c2, rook to d1, bishop to e2, delaying. Then eventually he launched the flank attack with h4, h5. Then when he got attacked, then he played king to f1, secured the king by castling, and brilliant theory here by the world champion Magnus. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Although this was a fast time format game, you see that we have also some cool theoretical novelties by these two top grandmasters. Incredible game. So if you want to see more about the Vienna variation of the Queen's Gambit decline and of some other openings that are possible in the Queen's Gambit decline, please check out my Queen's Gambit decline studies. So we have here now more than 110 videos about this very important opening. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what to say, chess is the best, of course.